Sweetheart, why don't you grab us some coffee while the grown-ups plan the actual mission? The words hit like a slap across the operations center. 23 Navy SEALs turned to watch. Lieutenant Maya Chen, 29 years old, stood at the briefing podium, holding classified intelligence that could save or destroy the mission. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't waver. Petty Officer Hartman, the target location is a trap. If your team goes in blind, you'll be dead within 20 minutes. Hartman laughed. His team joined in. No one knew Maya's real background. No one knew what she'd done in Syria. No one knew why the CIA called her the Ghost. They were about to find out. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the end to see how this unfolds. Comment below with your city so we can see how far this story travels around the world. The morning sun blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Naval Special Warfare Center's operations room, casting sharp shadows across the topographical maps of Yemen spread across the conference table. Maya Chen had been standing at the podium for exactly 4 minutes, presenting her intelligence assessment to SEAL Team 7, and she could feel the hostility radiating from every operator in the room, like heat from asphalt. The compound at these coordinates, Maya continued, her laser pointer circling a structure on the satellite image, shows indicators of deliberate staging. Guard patterns are too regular. Thermal signatures suggest minimal occupancy despite reported hostage presence. Petty Officer Jake Hartman leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest. At 31, he'd completed 3 combat deployments and wore his experience like armor. His voice carried the confidence of someone who'd never been proven wrong. Lieutenant Chen, with all due respect, we've been running hostage rescue operations since before you graduated college. The intelligence is solid. 3 American diplomats, confirmed alive, held at this location for 6 days. Maya met his eyes. The intelligence on their capture is solid. The intelligence on their current location is manufactured. This is a deception operation. Based on what? Hartman's second-in-command, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, spoke up. Your gut feeling? Based on pattern analysis of 19 previous operations by this specific terrorist cell. Based on signal intelligence showing coordinated communications suggesting preparation for an ambush. Based on structural analysis indicating the compound's defensive positions are optimized for killing anyone who breaches from the south approach. Hartman stood, his 6 feet 2 inches frame designed to intimidate. Lieutenant, I appreciate your analysis, but we've got real-world experience backing our assessment. Sometimes you need to trust the operators who actually do this work. The room fell silent. Maya felt the familiar weight of dismissal, the same weight she'd carried through 3 years of CIA operations where men assumed her youth and gender meant inexperience. Petty Officer Hartman, I'm not questioning your operational experience. I'm providing intelligence that contradicts your current targeting package. Intelligence from someone who's never been downrange. Hartman's voice wasn't loud, but it carried. How many hostage rescues have you personally conducted, Lieutenant? Maya's jaw tightened. Her classified service record remained sealed. As far as Team 7 knew, she was just another fresh analyst transferred from some Pentagon desk job. My operational history is not relevant to the intelligence assessment. That's what I thought. Hartman turned to his team. Gentlemen, we proceed with the original plan. Breach at 0300 local time. Extract the hostages. Exfil to the coast for helicopter pickup. Lieutenant Commander Rashad, the mission commander, had been watching the exchange quietly. At 42, with graying temples and a weathered face, he'd learned to listen before deciding. Petty Officer Hartman, Lieutenant Chen's concerns deserve consideration. What specifically contradicts her assessment? Hartman pulled up his own presentation. Sir, we have confirmed thermal signatures at the target location. We have intercepted communications referencing the hostages by name. We have visual confirmation from a local asset who observed Western prisoners being moved into this compound 4 days ago. All of which, Maya interjected, could be deliberately leaked information designed to draw a rescue attempt into a prepared ambush site. Or, Hartman shot back, it could be actual intelligence about actual hostages who will die if we sit around second-guessing solid information. Commander Rashad looked between them. Lieutenant Chen, what's your confidence level on the deception hypothesis? 73%, sir. High enough to warrant alternative approach vectors or additional reconnaissance before commitment. And what's the confidence level on the hostages' location? Rashad asked Hartman. 85%, sir. We have multiple independent confirmation sources. Rashad nodded slowly. We proceed with Hartman's plan, but I want continuous intelligence updates during approach. Lieutenant Chen, you'll maintain overwatch from the operations center. Any changes to the threat assessment come directly to me. It was a compromise that satisfied no one. Hartman's team began filing out, their body language communicating exactly what they thought of Maya's desk jockey analysis. As Hartman passed her station, he leaned in close enough that only she could hear. Sweetheart, next time you want to play operator, maybe get some actual field time first. Coffee's in the break room if you want to contribute something useful. Maya watched him walk away. She'd heard worse in Raqqa. She'd survived worse in Mosul. But the dismissal still stung, because it meant good men might die for pride. Master Chief Rivera had been standing at the back of the room throughout the briefing. At 54, with silver hair and a face mapped with scars from 26 years of special operations, he'd seen every type of operator and analyst the Navy produced. He approached Maya's station after the room cleared. Lieutenant, that was a hell of a presentation. Wasn't enough though, was it, Master Chief? Rivera leaned against the table. Hartman's a good operator, but he's also young enough to think he's invincible and experienced enough to believe he's always right. Dangerous combination. I've read his file. 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, multiple successful operations. He's earned his confidence. Confidence isn't the same as wisdom. Rivera studied her face. I've seen your file too, Lieutenant. The parts that aren't classified anyway. Maya's expression didn't change, but Rivera noticed her fingers still on the keyboard. I transferred here 6 months ago, Master Chief. Prior to that, administrative positions at various intelligence facilities. Right. Administrative. Rivera's tone suggested he knew exactly how much that description concealed. Well, those administrative positions apparently taught you pattern recognition that most analysts take a decade to develop. I had good teachers. I'm sure you did. Rivera pushed off from the table. Lieutenant, I've learned to trust my instincts about people. My instincts say you know exactly what you're talking about. But I also know that sometimes you have to let people learn lessons the hard way, even if those lessons cost lives. Especially then, because the alternative is they never learn at all. He started to walk away, then paused. But for what it's worth, I hope you're wrong about this one. So do I, Master Chief. So do I. The next 18 hours passed with excruciating slowness. Maya worked through every piece of available intelligence, searching for something that would either confirm or deny her assessment. The thermal signatures could be real, the communications could be genuine, the local asset could be reliable. But the pattern remained. 19 previous operations, 16 successful ambushes, 3 near misses where coalition forces had withdrawn before engagement. The terrorist cell's leader, Abu Khalid al-Rashid, had made deception operations his signature tactic. Maya knew al-Rashid's methodology intimately. She'd spent 8 months tracking his movements through Syria, analyzing his patterns, learning to think like him. She'd been the one who'd finally identified his command post location. She'd been the one who'd called in the airstrike that was supposed to have killed him. But al-Rashid had survived, and now he was in Yemen, still running the same playbook that had killed dozens of Western operatives. At 2,100 hours, Maya's phone buzzed with a secure message from Commander Rashad. Final mission brief at 2200. Your presence required. The briefing room was packed with Team 7 operators conducting last-minute equipment checks and reviewing operation timelines. Maya entered quietly, taking a position at the back rather than the front podium. Hartman was walking his team through the breach sequence. His confidence was infectious. Every operator in the room believed in the mission, because Hartman believed in it. We hit the compound at 0300. Webb's team takes the north entrance. My team takes south. Simultaneous breach. Clear the structure. Secure the hostages. Extract to vehicle rally point Alpha within 8 minutes. What about Lieutenant Chen's concerns? The question came from Petty Officer Second Class David Torres, youngest member of the team at 24. Hartman's jaw tightened. Torres, we've reviewed all available intelligence. The target is solid. But what if we sit around analyzing every possible threat until the hostages are executed on video? Hartman's voice carried an edge. What if we trust the intelligence that's been confirmed through multiple sources instead of hypothetical pattern analysis? Torres nodded, chastened. But Maya noticed he kept glancing back at her, uncertainty in his eyes. Commander Rashad took the podium for final approval. Gentlemen, this is a high-risk operation with potential for significant casualties. But 3 American diplomats are depending on us. We proceed as planned unless new intelligence emerges that fundamentally changes the threat assessment. He looked directly at Maya. Lieutenant Chen, anything to add? Every eye in the room turned toward her. This was her last chance to stop the mission, to force additional reconnaissance, to prevent what her analysis screamed was a trap. But she also knew the reality of hostage situations. Every hour of delay increased the risk of execution. If she was wrong, if the hostages were actually at that location and died because she'd prevented a rescue, she'd carry that weight forever. No, sir. I'll maintain continuous intelligence monitoring throughout the operation. Hartman's expression showed something between relief and vindication. He nodded to his team. All right, let's gear up. We've got Americans to bring home. The operators filed out, their confidence absolute, their training impeccable, their belief in the mission unshakable. Maya returned to the operations center, where she'd spend the next 6 hours monitoring satellite feeds, signals intelligence, and communications traffic, while Team 7 flew into what she believed was an ambush. At 0200 hours, the operations watch officer approached her station. Lieutenant, we've got the satellite feed coming online. Team 7 is 30 minutes from insertion. Maya pulled up the multiple screens showing thermal imaging, drone footage, and radio intercepts. The compound appeared exactly as the intelligence had indicated. Minimal thermal signatures, guard positions matching the briefing package. No obvious signs of enhanced security. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe this was exactly what it appeared to be. At 0245, Team 7 radioed their approach. Overwatch, this is Dagger 7. We are 5 minutes from target. All systems green. Maya keyed her microphone. Dagger 7, Overwatch confirms your position. Be advised, no changes to threat assessment. Proceed with caution. Hartman's voice came back with barely concealed irritation. Overwatch, we're always cautious. That's why we're SEALs. The operations center had filled with senior officers monitoring the mission. Admiral Brennan, base commander, stood directly behind Maya's station. Lieutenant Chen, your assessment still holds? Yes, sir. Pattern analysis suggests 73% probability of deception operation. But no direct evidence of ambush preparation?
No, sir, which is consistent with sophisticated deception operations that avoid detectable indicators.
Brennan nodded. Continue monitoring. If you see anything definitive, you speak up immediately. Understood?
Yes, sir.
At 0258, both teams confirmed they were in position for breach. Overwatch, Dagger 7. We have eyes on target. Thermal shows 4 signatures inside, consistent with 3 hostages and 1 guard. Preparing for breach. Maya's screen showed exactly what Hartman described.
Everything looked perfect. Everything matched the intelligence. Everything felt wrong.
Dagger 7. Recommend 1 additional thermal sweep before breach. Negative, Overwatch. We are on timeline. Breach in 60 seconds. Maya watched the screens, her heart hammering. 60 seconds until they entered the building. 60 seconds until her analysis was proven right or wrong. 60 seconds until men lived or died based on whose judgment was correct. Breach in 30 seconds. Master Chief Rivera had entered the operations center. He stood next to Maya's station, watching the same feeds. "Still think it's a trap?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "What are you going to do about it?" "My job. Watch and hope I'm wrong." Breach in 10 seconds. The thermal imaging showed both teams moving to their entry points. Perfect coordination, perfect timing, perfect execution of a perfect plan. Breaching now. The doors exploded inward simultaneously. Both teams flooded into the compound with the fluid precision of hundreds of hours of training. For exactly 8 seconds, everything went according to plan. Then the building exploded. Not the whole structure, just the south wall where Hartman's team had entered. A massive fireball erupted from the breach point, consuming the entry team in an instant. Maya's screen went white with thermal overload. "Contact! Contact!" Webb's voice screamed over the radio. "IED at South Breach. Hartman's team is down. We are taking heavy fire from—" The transmission cut off as automatic weapons fire erupted from positions surrounding the compound. The thermal imaging showed at least 30 enemy fighters emerging from concealed positions that hadn't registered on any previous scans. The ambush was perfect. The deception had been complete, and Team 7 was dying exactly as Maya had predicted they would. Admiral Brennan grabbed her shoulder. "Lieutenant, I need options. Right now." Maya's mind raced through tactical possibilities. Team 7 was pinned down with multiple casualties. Enemy forces had superior position and firepower. Extraction was impossible through the original route. But she'd spent the last 18 hours preparing for exactly this scenario. Because part of her had absolutely known, that Hartman's confidence would walk him straight into al-Rashid's trap. "Sir, I need tactical command authority. I can get them out, but I need direct communication with surviving operators." Brennan didn't hesitate. "You have command. Save my men." Maya keyed the primary tactical frequency. "All Dagger elements, this is Overwatch Actual. I am assuming tactical command. Acknowledge." Webb's voice came back between bursts of gunfire. "Overwatch, we are pinned down. 3 KIA, 4 wounded. Hartman's team is gone." "Chief Webb, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" A pause filled with the sound of automatic weapons and screaming. "Do we have a choice?" "No, but I need to know you'll follow my commands exactly. No deviation, no hesitation." "Roger that, Overwatch. What do you need?" Maya pulled up her alternative extraction analysis, the research she'd conducted, knowing that Hartman would reject her initial assessment. "Chief Webb, there's an underground aqueduct system 50 meters north of your position. Ottoman era, doesn't appear on modern maps. It runs 3 kilometers to an abandoned village where we can extract." "How the hell do you know about Ottoman aqueducts?" "Because I spent 8 months in Syria hunting the same terrorist cell that just ambushed you.
and Al-Rashid uses historical infrastructure for every operation he runs. Now move your team north. You have 12 minutes before enemy reinforcements arrive.
The operations center had gone completely silent. Every officer, every analyst, every technician was watching Maya coordinate the rescue with a precision that seemed impossible for someone who'd never been in combat. Except she had been in combat. She'd spent 3 years embedded with Kurdish forces, hunting ISIS leadership through the ruins of Raqqa and Mosul. She'd called in airstrikes, coordinated ground operations, and developed the intelligence that had killed more high-value targets than any analyst in CIA history. She just couldn't tell anyone that her administrative positions had actually been deep cover operations that remained classified at levels above anyone in this room. Overwatch, we're moving north, but we've got 4 litter casualties. We can't move fast. Understood. I'm redirecting a CIA drone for Overwatch. You'll have real-time enemy position updates. How are you redirecting CIA assets? Chief Webb, right now you need to focus on moving your team. Let me worry about the assets. Maya was already on a secure line with her former CIA handler. Marcus, I need Reaper 7's feed transferred to my station. Authorization code Ghost 3 Alpha. Jesus Christ, Maya, you're supposed to be retired from this. I'll explain later. Right now I have a SEAL team dying because someone didn't listen to my intelligence assessment. Transferring feed now. But you're going to owe me one hell of an after-action report. The drone feed appeared on Maya's center screen, showing Team 7's desperate movement through hostile territory, while enemy fighters repositioned to cut off their escape. Chief Webb, you have enemy squad moving to block your route. Take cover at the stone wall, 30 meters ahead. Wait for my signal. We can't wait! We need to keep moving! Chief, if you keep moving, you walk into a crossfire. Trust me. Another pause. Maya could almost feel Webb's internal struggle. Trust the analyst who'd predicted the ambush, or trust his own operational instincts? Roger, Overwatch, taking cover. Maya watched the enemy squad position themselves, waiting for the SEALs to move into the kill zone. But she'd already coordinated with Jordanian special forces operating across the border. Falcon 9, this is Overwatch Actual. Target coordinates incoming. Request immediate fire support. The Jordanian commander responded in accented English. Overwatch, we are not authorized to operate in Yemen airspace. Falcon 9, I'm transmitting authorization codes from U.S. Central Command. You are cleared for cross-border fire support under emergency coalition protocols. The codes were genuine. Favors called in from contacts she'd developed during her CIA service. Authorization that shouldn't exist, but did, because Maya had spent 3 years building relationships with every coalition partner in the region. Overwatch, authorization confirmed. Engaging target. Jordanian artillery fired 3 rounds with GPS precision. The enemy squad disappeared in a cloud of dust and shrapnel. Chief Webb, your route is clear. Move now. Team 7 pushed forward, carrying their wounded through darkness toward an extraction point that only Maya knew existed. The next 40 minutes were brutal. Maya coordinated continuous fire support from coalition assets, redirected satellite coverage to track enemy movements, and provided turn-by-turn navigation through underground tunnels that hadn't been used since the Ottoman Empire collapsed. Chief Webb's voice grew hoarse from shouting commands over gunfire. His team was exhausted, terrified, and bleeding, but they followed every instruction Maya provided because those instructions kept them alive. At 0347, Team 7 emerged from the tunnel system at the abandoned village. 2 Marine helicopters were already inbound for extraction. Aircraft Maya had pre-positioned because she'd known the original exfil plan would be impossible. Overwatch, we are at extraction point. How did you? Explanations later, Chief. Get your team on those birds and get them home. As the helicopters lifted off with the survivors, Admiral Brennan stood next to Maya's station. His face showed a mixture of relief and shock. Lieutenant Chen, I need to know who the hell you really are. Maya looked up at him, and for the first time since arriving at Naval Special Warfare Center, she let the mask slip. The exhaustion showed.
The weight of 3 years of combat operations showed. The cost of keeping secrets showed. Sir, I'm someone who really wished people had listened 6 hours ago. The operations center remained frozen in silence as the weight of what they'd witnessed settled over everyone present.
Somewhere over the Arabian Peninsula, Chief Marcus Webb was looking at his surviving team members and asking himself how a 29-year-old analyst had just executed the most sophisticated rescue coordination he'd ever experienced. And in a compound in Yemen, among the bodies of dead terrorists and the wreckage of a perfect ambush, Jake Hartman and 3 of his teammates lay silent, killed in the first 8 seconds of a mission they'd been so confident would succeed. The silence at Naval Special Warfare Center wasn't just shock. It was the sound of every assumption being shattered. It was the sound of respect being earned through competence instead of rank. It was the sound of a base full of elite warriors realizing they'd completely misjudged the quiet analyst who'd tried to save them. And somewhere in that silence, Maya Chen sat at her console and wondered if saving 8 men could ever make up for losing 4. The helicopters touched down at Naval Special Warfare Center at 06:20, 3 hours. Medical teams swarmed the aircraft before the rotors stopped spinning. Maya watched from the operations center window as stretchers carried the wounded across the tarmac, their blood darkening the concrete in the early morning light. Chief Marcus Webb stumbled off the second helicopter, his uniform torn and scorched, his face a mask of exhausted grief. He walked directly toward the operations center, bypassing the medical team trying to examine him. Admiral Brennan met him at the entrance. "Chief Webb, you need medical attention." "I need to talk to Lieutenant Chen first, sir." "That can wait until—"
"No, sir, it can't." Webb's voice cracked. "Hartman's dead. Rodriguez is dead. Kimball is dead. Chen is dead. 4 good men died because we didn't listen to her." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya stood at her console, still wearing the headset she'd used to coordinate the rescue, her hands trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. Webb walked straight to her station. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hands shaking. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You tried to tell us. You tried to warn us. And we laughed at you." Maya met his gaze. "Chief Webb, you need to see medical. You've been in combat for 4 hours." "How did you know?" Webb ignored her deflection. "How did you know about the aqueducts? How did you coordinate CIA drones and Jordanian artillery? How did you run a rescue operation like you've done it 100 times before?" The operations center had gone silent. Every analyst, every officer, every technician was listening. This was the question everyone wanted answered. "Chief, I did my job. That's all that matters right now." "Bullshit," Webb's voice rose. "That wasn't analyst work.
That was operational command from someone with serious field experience." "Who are you?" Admiral Brennan stepped forward. "Chief Webb, Lieutenant Chen's background is classified. Stand down." "Sir, with respect, 4 of my teammates are dead. I think I've earned the right to know who just saved my life." Brennan looked at Maya. She could see the calculation in his eyes. How much truth could be revealed without violating classification protocols? How much did these men deserve to know? Maya made the decision for him. "Chief Webb, before I transferred here, I worked for the CIA's Special Operations Group. 3 years embedded with Kurdish forces in Syria and Iraq. I hunted the same terrorist cell that ambushed your team tonight." The silence deepened. Webb stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You were CIA? Running ground operations?" "Yes." "For 3 years?" "Yes." "How old are you, Lieutenant?" 29. Webb did the math. "You were 26 when you started? Running combat operations at 26? I was 23 when I started. I didn't make lieutenant until I transferred to the Navy. Master Chief Rivera had entered the operations center during the exchange. His weathered face showed no surprise at Maya's revelation.
I knew it,
Rivera said quietly.
I've seen too many operators to miss the signs. The way you move, the way you think, the way you stayed calm while coordinating that rescue. That's not analyst training. That's combat experience.
Webb turned back to Maya. The aqueducts. How did you know about Ottoman-era infrastructure in Yemen?
Because Abu Khalid al-Rashid uses historical infrastructure for every operation he runs. Underground tunnels, ancient wells, Roman-era fortifications. He's a history professor by training, and he applies that knowledge to modern warfare. I spent 8 months tracking him through Syria, learning his methodology, analyzing his patterns.
Wait, Webb's eyes widened.
Al-Rashid, you're talking about the ISIS commander who got killed in that airstrike 2 years ago. That was you?
Maya's jaw tightened. That airstrike was supposed to kill him. Obviously it didn't, since he's now in Yemen running the same playbook. But the CIA announced they'd eliminated him. It was all over the news. The CIA announced what they needed to announce for operational security. Al-Rashid survived with serious injuries and moved his operations to Yemen. I've been tracking him ever since. Admiral Brennan's phone buzzed. He stepped away to take the call, leaving Maya and Webb facing each other across the console.
Lieutenant Chen, I owe you an apology that goes way beyond what I can express right now. You saved 8 lives tonight.
I also failed to save 4, Chief. Don't make me into a hero when men died because I couldn't convince their team leader to listen.
That's on Hartman, not you. He was...
Webb's voice broke.
He was my best friend. We went through BUD/S together. But he had this blind spot about analysts, about anyone who hadn't been in the teams. He couldn't see past your age and your rank to recognize actual competence.
Maya felt the weight of those words. How many times had she encountered the same blind spot? How many operations had been compromised because experienced operators dismissed intelligence from sources they considered inferior?
Chief, your friend was a good operator. He was an arrogant asshole who got 3 men killed along with himself.
Webb's honesty was brutal.
And I was right there with him, laughing at you, dismissing your analysis. I'm just as responsible.
The medical team finally caught up with Webb. A Navy corpsman grabbed his arm. Chief, you're going to medical right now. You've got shrapnel wounds and possible internal injuries. Webb let himself be led away, but he looked back at Maya one last time.
Lieutenant, when I get out of medical, I want to learn everything you know. Every pattern, every indicator, every lesson you learned hunting that bastard. Will you teach me?
Maya nodded.
Yes, Chief. I'll teach you.
As Webb disappeared toward the medical facility, Admiral Brennan returned with an expression that suggested the phone call had complicated everything. Lieutenant Chen, that was the Director of National Intelligence. Apparently, your former employer is very interested in tonight's operation.
Sir, I followed proper protocols. I didn't disclose any classified...
You coordinated CIA drone assets, Jordanian artillery support, and a cross-border rescue operation using authorization codes that technically don't exist. The DNI wants to know how a Navy lieutenant has access to Special Activities Division resources. Maya had known this moment would come. The rescue had required pulling strings that exposed connections she'd meant to keep buried.
Sir, when I transferred from CIA to Navy, certain operational relationships remained active for contingency purposes. Tonight qualified as a contingency.
A contingency. Brennan's tone suggested he knew there was much more to the story.
Lieutenant, the DNI is flying here personally to debrief you. He arrives in 4 hours.
Until then, you're confined to base and relieved of normal duties. Sir, I need to complete the after-action analysis. You need to get some rest and prepare to explain to the Director of National Intelligence why a 29-year-old Navy lieutenant just ran an operation that's going to make headlines in every intelligence agency in the world. Master Chief Rivera accompanied Maya to her small office in the intelligence building. Neither spoke until the door closed behind them.
How bad is this going to be for you?
Rivera asked. Maya sank into her chair, exhaustion finally overwhelming the adrenaline that had sustained her through the night.
Honestly, Master Chief, I don't know. I broke about 15 different protocols tonight. I exposed operational relationships that were supposed to stay compartmentalized. I used my CIA access for a military operation without proper authorization.
You saved 8 men's lives.
That doesn't always matter in the intelligence community. Results aren't everything when you've violated the chain of command.
Rivera studied her face.
You knew this would happen. You knew using those CIA connections would expose your background. But you did it anyway. What was I supposed to do? Let them die to protect my cover story? Most people would have. Most people would have followed protocol and let the consequences play out.
Maya looked up at him.
Is that what you would have done, Master Chief?
Rivera smiled grimly.
No, but I've also spent 26 years learning that sometimes the right thing and the authorized thing aren't the same thing.
A knock interrupted their conversation. Lieutenant Commander Rashad entered, still wearing his tactical gear from monitoring the operation. Lieutenant Chen, I need to understand what happened tonight, from the beginning. Maya walked him through her analysis, the pattern recognition that identified the target as a deception operation, the intelligence indicators that suggested an ambush, the alternative extraction planning she'd conducted, assuming her warnings would be ignored. Rashad listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You prepared an alternative rescue plan before the mission even launched?
Yes, sir.
Because you knew Hartman would reject your assessment. I assessed there was an 80% probability that operational confidence would override intelligence concerns.
Yes, sir.
So you prepared to save them, even though they wouldn't listen to you. Maya met his eyes. Sir, I've spent 3 years watching good people die because intelligence was ignored or misinterpreted. I wasn't going to let that happen again if I could prevent it. Rashad nodded slowly. Lieutenant, I've been running SEAL operations for 15 years. What you did tonight, the tactical coordination, the asset management, the real-time decision-making, that was some of the most sophisticated operational command I've witnessed. Where did you learn that? Raqqa, sir. Mosul. Deir ez-Zor. Everywhere the CIA sent me to hunt high-value targets with limited resources and no margin for error. At 23 years old, I didn't have a choice about my age, sir. I just had a choice about whether to be good enough to survive. The weight of that statement filled the room. Rashad had been a SEAL for his entire adult life, but he recognized something in Maya that went beyond military training. A kind of hard-won competence that only came from repeated exposure to situations where mistakes meant death. Lieutenant, when the DNI arrives, he's going to want to know if you violated your separation agreement with the CIA. Maya's expression didn't change, but Rivera noticed her hands still on the desk. Sir, my separation agreement included provisions for emergency reactivation of operational relationships. Tonight qualified. Did you get authorization before using those provisions? No, sir. There wasn't time. So you made a command decision that you were authorized to violate standard protocols? Yes, sir. And I'll accept whatever consequences come from that decision. Rashad exchanged a glance with Rivera. Both men understood the impossible position Maya had been in. Follow protocol and watch men die, or break protocol and save lives while destroying her career. Lieutenant, for what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Not the authorized call, but the right call.
Thank you, sir. That means more than you know.
As Rashad left, Rivera remained behind. He pulled a chair across from Maya's desk and sat down heavily. I'm going to tell you something that stays in this room. Understood?
Yes, Master Chief.
20 years ago, I ran an operation in Somalia that went sideways. My team was pinned down, taking casualties, and command wanted us to wait for backup that was 3 hours away. I knew my men didn't have 3 hours, so I violated orders, called in an airstrike that wasn't authorized, and got my team out. Maya listened, understanding where this was going. The Navy wanted to court-martial me, strip my rank, end my career. But the men I saved spoke up. Their families spoke up. Eventually, the whole thing got quietly buried, and I kept my career. But I learned something important that day.
What's that, Master Chief?
Sometimes the institution values rule following more than results, and sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice your career to do what's right. The question is whether you can live with that choice.
I can live with saving 8 men's lives. I can't live with following protocol while they die.
Rivera nodded.
Good answer. But, Lieutenant, you need to understand that the Navy might not see it that way. The DNI might not see it that way. You could be looking at the end of your career for what you did tonight.
I know, Master Chief. I accepted that risk the moment I called in those CIA assets.
Why did you transfer to the Navy in the first place? If you were so effective with the CIA, why leave?
Maya was quiet for a long time before answering.
Because I spent 3 years watching people die, Master Chief. American personnel, Allied forces, innocent civilians caught in crossfire. I called in airstrikes on buildings that I knew had families inside, because high-value targets were using them as shields. I made decisions that killed people who probably didn't deserve to die. Her voice remained steady, but Rivera saw the pain behind her words. I thought transferring to the Navy would mean I could contribute to national security without having to make those kinds of decisions anymore. I thought analyzing intelligence from a safe distance would be easier than coordinating operations where people die based on my recommendations.
But tonight you had to make those decisions again.
Tonight I had to choose between following rules and saving lives. Same choice I made 100 times in Syria. Turns out, you can't really escape who you are.
Before Rivera could respond, the door opened and Admiral Brennan entered with 2 civilians in dark suits. Their presence screamed federal law enforcement. Lieutenant Chen, these are Special Agents Morrison and Park from the Defense Intelligence Agency. They need to ask you some questions while we wait for the DNI to arrive. Maya stood, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. DIA involvement meant this was bigger than a simple protocol violation. Agent Morrison was in his 40s, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent time in conflict zones. Lieutenant Chen, we need to understand the nature of your ongoing relationship with the Central Intelligence Agency.
I separated from the CIA 6 months ago. My current relationship is limited to emergency protocols outlined in my separation agreement.
Your separation agreement doesn't authorize unilateral reactivation of operational assets. It authorizes emergency use of existing relationships to prevent loss of American lives. I assessed tonight's situation as meeting that threshold. Agent Park, younger and harder-edged, pulled out a tablet. Lieutenant, you coordinated with a CIA Special Operations Officer named Marcus Devlin, is that correct? Marcus was my handler during my time with Special Activities Division. He maintains oversight of my emergency reactivation protocols. Did you receive authorization from Mr. Devlin before accessing CIA drone assets? Maya met Park's eyes directly. I informed Mr. Devlin of the emergency situation and requested asset access under existing protocols. He granted that access. So you did have authorization? I had authorization from my former handler,
Whether that authorization supersedes current chain of command is a question above my pay grade. Morrison nodded slowly. Lieutenant, were you aware that Abu Khalid al-Rashid's presence in Yemen is currently an active CIA operation? The question landed like a punch. Maya's expression remained neutral, but Rivera saw her fingers tighten on the edge of the desk. No, I was not aware of active operations targeting al-Rashid in Yemen. So, when you identified him as the likely architect of tonight's ambush, you didn't know that CIA has been tracking him for the past 4 months? I identified his operational methodology based on pattern analysis. I wasn't aware of current CIA intelligence on his location or activities. Park leaned forward. Lieutenant, the timing of tonight's SEAL operation and the CIA's planned operation against al-Rashid was not coincidental. We believe someone in the intelligence community leaked information about the hostage situation, specifically to draw U.S. forces into an ambush that would compromise the CIA operation. Maya felt ice forming in her stomach. You think there's a leak inside the intelligence community? We think tonight's ambush was too perfectly timed to be coincidence. And we think your prior relationship with the CIA and your knowledge of al-Rashid's operations makes you a person of interest in that investigation. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Rivera stood up, his voice hard. Agent Park, are you suggesting that Lieutenant Chen had something to do with setting up tonight's ambush? Because she's the one who warned against it. She's the one who predicted exactly what would happen. And she's the one who saved 8 men's lives when her warnings were ignored. Master Chief, we're not accusing Lieutenant Chen of anything. We're gathering information about a potential security breach. Bullshit! Rivera's language shocked everyone in the room. You're looking for a scapegoat because 4 SEALs died tonight and someone needs to be held responsible. And you've decided the analyst who tried to prevent it makes a convenient target. Admiral Brennan held up his hand. Master Chief, stand down. Agents, I think this interview needs to wait until the DNI arrives and we have proper counsel present. Morrison nodded. Agreed. Lieutenant Chen, you're not to discuss tonight's operation with anyone outside this room. Understood? Yes, sir. As the DIA agents left, Maya sank back into her chair. The exhaustion, the stress, the weight of 4 deaths and 8 lives saved. It all crashed over her at once. Master Chief, they think I leaked intelligence that got Hartman's team ambushed. They're fishing, Lieutenant, looking for easy answers to hard questions. But what if they're right? What if someone did leak information about the SEAL operation to compromise the CIA mission? What if I missed something in my analysis? Rivera's voice was firm. Lieutenant, you did everything right tonight. You identified the threat, you warned the team, and when they didn't listen, you prepared to save them anyway. Don't let bureaucrats second-guess your decisions. Admiral Brennan waited until Rivera finished before speaking. Lieutenant Chen, I'm going to be honest with you. This situation is complicated beyond anything I've handled in 30 years of naval service. You've got DIA investigating potential intelligence leaks, CIA concerned about compromised operations, and the DNI flying across the country to personally debrief a junior lieutenant. That combination tells me there's something bigger happening here that I don't fully understand. Maya looked up at him. Sir, I can't discuss certain aspects of my CIA service, but I can tell you that I never compromised operational security. I never leaked classified information, and everything I did tonight was focused solely on saving American lives. I believe you, Lieutenant, but belief isn't going to protect you from a full investigation. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this ends your career. The words should have terrified her, but after 3 years of coordinating operations where mistakes meant death, the prospect of losing her career seemed almost trivial. Sir, I joined the military to serve my country. Tonight, I did that to the best of my ability. If that ends my career, at least I can live with my decisions. Brennan studied her face for a long moment. "Lieutenant, you remind me of someone I served with a long time ago. An operator who was willing to sacrifice everything, rank, career, reputation, to do what he believed was right. He died saving his team during an unauthorized rescue operation. The Navy gave him the Medal of Honor posthumously, but he never got to see his career vindicated."
What was his name, sir?
"Lieutenant Michael Chen, your father." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. "You knew my father?" "I was his platoon commander during his first SEAL deployment. Michael was the best junior officer I ever served with. Brilliant, brave, and completely unwilling to let politics or protocol interfere with protecting his men. When I saw your name on the transfer order 6 months ago, I wondered if you were related. Tonight confirmed it." Maya's voice was barely a whisper.
He never told me you served together. He never talked much about his service before.
"Before he died, saving his team during an operation that command had ordered him to abort."
I know. I was there, Lieutenant. I watched your father choose between following orders and saving lives. He made the same choice you made tonight.
The parallel was devastating. Maya had spent her entire career trying to honor her father's memory, trying to live up to the heroism that had left her without a father at age 7. And now she'd made the same decision that had killed him.
Does it ever get easier, sir? Making choices where either option means someone suffers?
Brennan's expression showed decades of hard experience. "No, Lieutenant. It never gets easier. You just learn to live with the weight. Your father understood that. And I think you do too." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. A young petty officer stuck his head in.
"Admiral, the DNI's aircraft has landed. He's requesting an immediate briefing with Lieutenant Chen."
Brennan nodded. "Tell the DNI we'll meet him in the secure conference room in 10 minutes. He turned to Maya. "Lieutenant, get yourself cleaned up. You're about to meet the man who controls your entire career future. Don't give him any reason to doubt your competence or your loyalty." As Maya headed to the restroom to make herself presentable, she passed by the medical facility where Chief Webb was being treated. Through the window, she could see him sitting on an examination table, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent grief. 4 men dead, 8 men saved. A career hanging in the balance, an investigation that could destroy everything she'd worked for. But when Maya looked in the mirror, she didn't see someone who'd made mistakes. She saw someone who'd done exactly what needed to be done. And if that meant sacrificing her career the same way her father had sacrificed his life, she could live with that choice. The weight of command meant carrying burdens no one else could see. Tonight, Maya had proven she could carry that weight. Now she just had to convince the Director of National Intelligence that saving 8 American lives was worth violating every protocol in the book. The secure conference room felt smaller than it actually was. Director of National Intelligence Robert Caldwell sat at the head of the table, his silver hair and granite features making him look every bit the former Marine general he'd been before ascending to the highest intelligence position in the country. Maya sat across from him, Admiral Brennan to her right, the 2 DIA agents flanking the door like sentries. Caldwell didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Lieutenant Chen, I've spent the last 4 hours on a plane reading your CIA service record, the classified parts that make your Navy personnel file look like a children's book. Want to tell me why someone with your background is wasting away analyzing routine intelligence at a SEAL training facility?" Maya met his gaze without flinching.
Sir, I requested the transfer. After 3 years of active operations, I needed a less intensive assignment.
"Less intensive." Caldwell's tone suggested he didn't believe that for a second. "You ran 73 covert operations, personally identified 42 high-value targets, and survived situations that killed more experienced operators. The agency's assessment said you were the most effective field intelligence officer they'd developed in 20 years. And you walked away to analyze training reports? Sir, I watched a lot of people die in those 3 years. I needed distance from operational work. Yet tonight you ran an operation that would have challenged most special operations commanders. Doesn't sound like someone looking for distance. Maya's jaw tightened. Tonight was an emergency situation, sir. I did what was necessary. Caldwell leaned back in his chair. Lieutenant, I'm not here to reprimand you. I'm here because what you did tonight exposed something that's been buried in classified channels for 6 months. The CIA's operation targeting Abu Khalid al-Rashid wasn't just intelligence gathering. It was a targeted assassination mission, scheduled to execute 48 hours from now. The room went silent. Maya felt her stomach drop. Your SEAL team walked into what was supposed to be a CIA kill zone. Someone leaked information about the hostage situation and the SEAL response timeline to al-Rashid's network. That leak compromised months of planning and got 4 American service members killed. Admiral Brennan spoke up. Director Caldwell, are you suggesting Lieutenant Chen was involved in that leak? I'm suggesting that the timing is suspicious as hell. Lieutenant Chen separates from the CIA 6 months ago. Exactly 6 months later, an operation targeting her primary adversary gets compromised by intelligence that only a handful of people had access to. Maya's voice was steady despite the accusation. Sir, I had no knowledge of active CIA operations in Yemen. My analysis of tonight's mission was based entirely on pattern recognition from al-Rashid's previous operations. Pattern recognition that was so accurate you predicted not just the ambush, but the exact methodology al-Rashid would use. That's either exceptional intelligence work or prior knowledge of his planning. It's 3 years of studying how one man thinks, sir. I know al-Rashid's operational patterns better than anyone in the intelligence community, because I dedicated my entire CIA career to hunting him. Caldwell pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. Then explain this. The screen showed an intercepted communication between 2 unknown parties. The message was in Arabic, but the English translation scrolled beneath. American rescue operation confirmed for target location. Timeline matches our preparation. The Ghost's intelligence continues to be reliable. Maya read it twice, her mind racing. The Ghost had been her operational call sign in Syria. Very few people knew that designation. Sir, I never communicated any information about tonight's SEAL operation to anyone outside proper channels. But someone using your call sign did. Someone who had detailed knowledge of the mission timeline and target location. Someone al-Rashid's network trusted enough to act on their intelligence. Agent Morrison stepped forward. Lieutenant Chen, we've traced the communication origin to a server in Ankara, Turkey. The same city where you maintained a safe house during your CIA operations. A safe house that was compromised and abandoned 18 months ago. Anyone with access to old CIA files could know about that location. Or someone who still has access to that safe house could be using it to communicate with hostile networks. Maya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I spent 3 years hunting terrorists, sir. I bled for this country. I watched friends die. And now you're accusing me of being a traitor based on an intercepted message that could have been fabricated by the same intelligence network I was trying to destroy? Caldwell's expression didn't change. Sit down, Lieutenant. I didn't say I believed you were guilty. I said the evidence is suspicious. There's a difference. Maya remained standing. With respect, sir, it sounds like you've already made up your mind. If I'd made up my mind, you'd be in custody right now, not sitting in a conference room. Caldwell's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Now sit down and listen. Maya sat slowly, every muscle tense. Here's what I know, Lieutenant.
4 SEALs are dead because someone leaked intelligence to al-Rashid's network. A CIA operation worth millions of dollars and months of planning is compromised, and the only person at Naval Special Warfare Center with the knowledge, experience, and access to pull off that kind of leak is sitting across from me right now. He paused, letting the weight settle. Here's what I also know. You warned against tonight's operation. You provided analysis that would have prevented the ambush if anyone had listened. And when that ambush happened anyway, you coordinated a rescue that saved 8 American lives, using resources and relationships that you weren't technically authorized to access. Admiral Brennan leaned forward. Director, what exactly are you saying? I'm saying the evidence points in 2 completely opposite directions. Either Lieutenant Chen is a traitor who set up tonight's ambush, or she's an exceptional intelligence officer who tried to prevent it and then saved lives when her warnings were ignored. So which do you believe? Caldwell looked directly at Maya. I believe someone is trying very hard to make Lieutenant Chen look guilty. The question is, why? The words took a moment to register. Maya's voice was careful.
You think I'm being framed?
I think it's awfully convenient that communications using your call sign started appearing exactly when the CIA operation against al-Rashid entered final planning stages. I think it's convenient that those communications can be traced to locations you previously operated from. And I think it's convenient that tonight's disaster puts you under investigation right when your expertise would be most valuable. Agent Park spoke up.
Director, are you suggesting this is a counterintelligence operation?
I'm suggesting that Abu Khalid al-Rashid is smart enough to know that the best way to neutralize a threat is to turn their own people against them. If he can make us believe our best al-Rashid analyst is a traitor, he eliminates her without firing a shot.
The logic was sound, but it raised terrifying implications.
Maya's voice was quiet.
If al-Rashid is running a counterintelligence operation against me, that means he knows who I am. It means he's known all along.
It means more than that, Lieutenant. It means he's been planning this since before you left the CIA. The question is, how he got access to classified information about your identity and your operational history. Admiral Brennan's face had gone pale. Director, are you suggesting there's a mole inside the intelligence community? I'm suggesting that al-Rashid has consistently stayed one step ahead of every operation we've run against him for 3 years. He survived an airstrike that should have killed him. He relocated to Yemen before we could track him. He knew about tonight's SEAL operation before it launched. That level of intelligence requires someone feeding him information from inside our system. Maya felt pieces clicking together in her mind.
The airstrike that was supposed to kill al-Rashid.
I called in those coordinates based on signals intelligence that he was meeting with his command staff. But when the bombs hit, only low-level fighters were in the building. Al-Rashid wasn't there.
You think the intelligence was intentionally wrong?
I think someone knew I was tracking al-Rashid's communications and fed me false intelligence that would waste our airstrike while allowing him to escape. They've been playing me for 3 years. Caldwell nodded slowly. That's exactly what we think happened. And we think whoever fed you that false intelligence is the same person who leaked tonight's SEAL operation to al-Rashid's network. Agent Morrison pulled out another tablet. Lieutenant Chen, during your CIA service, who had direct access to your operational reporting? Maya's mind raced through 3 years of operations.
My handler, Marcus Devlin, the Syria station chief, the Special Activities Division Director,
maybe a dozen analysts at various levels.
Anyone who stood out? Anyone who seemed too interested in your work or asked unusual questions? Everyone was interested in my work. I was the primary intelligence source on al-Rashid for the entire region. Think harder, Lieutenant. Small details. Anything that didn't feel right at the time but you dismissed.
Maya closed her eyes, forcing herself back through memories she'd tried to bury. 3 years of operations, hundreds of briefings, thousands of interactions with intelligence personnel. Then something surfaced. A conversation 6 months before she left the CIA. There was a debrief after the airstrike failed. The Syria station chief, William Mercer, kept pushing me about how I'd identified al-Rashid's location. He wanted to know every source, every methodology, every piece of analysis that led to those coordinates. That's standard debriefing procedure after a failed operation. But he kept coming back to it. 3 separate sessions over 2 weeks. And he specifically wanted to know about my signal intelligence sources, which Kurdish fighters were providing communications intercepts, which technical collection systems I was using, information that should have been compartmented. Caldwell and Morrison exchanged glances. Morrison typed something on his tablet. Lieutenant, did William Mercer have access to your operational safe house locations? Station chiefs have access to all safe house information in their area of responsibility, including the Ankara safe house, where communications using your call sign originated. Maya felt ice forming in her veins. Yes, Mercer would have had complete access to that information. Morrison showed his tablet to Caldwell. Whatever was on the screen made the DNI's expression harden. Lieutenant Chen, William Mercer retired from the CIA 4 months ago. He cited health reasons and took a generous retirement package. He's currently living in Dubai. Dubai has no extradition treaty with the United States, Maya said quietly. If someone wanted to disappear after betraying the country, Dubai would be a smart choice. It would also be a smart choice for someone who wanted to continue working for a hostile intelligence network without American oversight. Caldwell stood, his decision made. Agent Morrison, I want a full investigation into William Mercer's financial records, communications, and movements for the past 3 years. If he's been feeding intelligence to al-Rashid, I want proof. Sir, that level of investigation into a former station chief will require authorization from... I'll get the authorization. You focus on the investigation. Caldwell turned to Maya. Lieutenant, you're officially cleared of suspicion in tonight's intelligence leak, but you're also now the key witness in a counterintelligence investigation that could reach the highest levels of the CIA. That makes you both valuable and vulnerable. Admiral Brennan stood as well. Director, what kind of protection are we talking about? The kind that means Lieutenant Chen doesn't leave this base without armed escort. The kind that means every communication she has is monitored. The kind that means if al-Rashid knows she's been cleared and knows she's helping us hunt his source, he'll do everything possible to eliminate her. Maya's voice was steady. I can handle protective details, sir. What I want to know is whether I can help with the investigation. I know Mercer's patterns. I know al-Rashid's methodology. You can stay on this base and let professional counterintelligence officers do their jobs. Caldwell's tone allowed no argument. Lieutenant, you're an exceptional intelligence analyst, but you're also emotionally compromised. 4 men died tonight, partially because your warnings were ignored. You're not in the right headspace to run an objective investigation. Sir, with respect, nothing. You're grounded from operational work until we resolve this situation. That's not a suggestion, Lieutenant. That's a direct order from the Director of National Intelligence. The finality in his voice made clear that arguing would be pointless. Maya nodded stiffly. As Caldwell prepared to leave, Admiral Brennan walked him to the door. Their conversation was quiet, but audible. Director, what happens to Lieutenant Chen's career after this? That depends on what the investigation finds. If Mercer is the leak, and we can prove it, Lieutenant Chen's actions tonight look heroic. If we can't prove it, She'll always have a cloud over her career. Even though you just cleared her? Admiral, in the intelligence community, suspicion is harder to erase than guilt. Even if we prove she's innocent, there will always be people who wonder if she was involved. That kind of doubt can destroy a career. After Caldwell left, Maya remained in the conference room with Admiral Brennan and Master Chief Rivera, who'd entered during the latter part of the briefing. "Lieutenant, I need you to understand something." Brennan's voice was gentle but firm. "What Director Caldwell said about your career is true. Even if you're completely cleared, tonight's events will follow you. Every future assignment, every promotion board, every security clearance review, someone will remember that you were investigated for leaking intelligence to terrorists." Maya's voice was hollow. "So I saved 8 men's lives and destroyed my career in the process." "You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. That takes courage that most people never have to demonstrate." "Courage doesn't pay the bills or advance careers, sir." Master Chief Rivera sat down next to her. "Lieutenant, can I tell you what I see when I look at you? I see an officer who refused to let protocol override her professional judgment. I see someone who prepared to save lives, even when she knew she'd be blamed if things went wrong. I see exactly the kind of leader this military needs." "The military doesn't need leaders who get investigated by the DNI, Master Chief." "The military needs leaders who do the right thing, regardless of consequences. You think anyone remembers the officers who followed all the rules? No. They remember the ones who had the guts to break rules when breaking them saved lives." A knock interrupted them. Chief Marcus Webb entered, his arm in a sling, his face still showing the trauma of combat. But his eyes were clear. "Lieutenant Chen, I heard the DNI left. Are you okay?" Maya managed a tired smile. "Define okay, Chief." "Still have your commission? Not in handcuffs? I'll take that as a win." "Barely." Turning out, coordinating unauthorized rescue operations and possibly being framed as a traitor makes you unpopular with the intelligence community. Webb pulled up a chair. "Lieutenant, I've been thinking about what happened tonight. About Hartman and the others. About how we dismissed your analysis and walked right into that ambush." "Chief, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do. Ma'am, Hartman was my friend, but he was wrong. We were all wrong. We let our pride and our assumptions blind us to solid intelligence. And 4 good men paid for that mistake with their lives." His voice cracked slightly. "But 8 of us are alive right now because you prepared to save us even after we disrespected you and ignored your warnings. That's not just good intelligence work, ma'am. That's leadership." Maya felt tears threatening for the first time since the operation ended. "Chief, I couldn't save them all. I tried, but I couldn't." "You saved everyone you could save. No one can ask for more than that." Webb stood, came to attention, and saluted. "Ma'am, when this investigation is over and when I'm cleared for duty, I want to learn everything you know. I want you to train me and my team so we never make the same mistakes again. Will you do that?" Maya returned the salute. "Yes, Chief. I'll teach you everything I know." As Webb left, Admiral Brennan's phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression darkened. "Lieutenant, that was base security. Apparently word about tonight's operation has leaked to the media. We've got reporters at the main gate asking about a failed SEAL mission and American casualties." "How did the media get that information so fast?" "That's an excellent question, and one that suggests al-Rashid's network has better intelligence on our internal communications than we thought." Master Chief Rivera stood. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to coordinate with base security on protecting Lieutenant Chen.
If her identity is compromised to the media, she becomes an even bigger target. Approved, Master Chief. Lieutenant Chen, you're confined to base until further notice. Your quarters, the intelligence facility, and the mess hall. Nowhere else without armed escort. Maya nodded, too exhausted to argue. As she stood to leave, Admiral Brennan stopped her. Lieutenant, one more thing. Your father would be proud of what you did tonight. Michael always believed that doing the right thing mattered more than following orders. You proved that belief was worth dying for. The words hit harder than any accusation from the DNI. Maya's voice was barely a whisper.
Thank you, sir. That means everything. Walking back to her quarters with Master Chief Rivera and 2 armed security personnel, Maya felt the weight of the last 12 hours settling over her like a physical burden. 4 men dead, 8 men saved. Her career hanging by a thread. A counterintelligence investigation that could expose corruption at the highest levels of the CIA. And somewhere in Yemen, Abu Khalid al-Rashid was celebrating a successful operation while planning his next move. Rivera walked her to her door. Lieutenant, I know you're exhausted, but I need you to understand something. What happened tonight isn't over. Al-Rashid knows you're onto him. He knows you helped uncover his source. That makes you a threat he'll want to eliminate. I understand, Master Chief. I'm not sure you do. These aren't battlefield threats where you can see the enemy coming. These are intelligence operations where a car accident or a food poisoning incident could be an assassination disguised as bad luck. You need to be careful. Maya met his eyes. Master Chief, I spent 3 years in Syria sleeping in different locations every night, checking my food for poison, assuming every stranger was a potential threat. I know how to stay alive in a hostile environment. Syria was a war zone. This is a Navy base in San Diego. The danger is different because you won't see it coming. Then I guess I'll have to trust the people protecting me. She smiled without humor. Lucky for me, I'm surrounded by the most elite warriors the military produces. Rivera didn't return the smile. The most elite warriors in the world couldn't protect your father, Lieutenant. Don't assume you're invulnerable just because you're on friendly territory. The reminder stung. Maya's father had died on American soil during what was supposed to be a routine training exercise. The accident that killed him had never been fully explained. Master Chief, are you suggesting my father's death wasn't an accident? Rivera's expression was carefully neutral. I'm suggesting that people who threaten powerful interests sometimes die in convenient ways. Your father was investigating corruption in the SEAL procurement system when he died. You're investigating potential betrayal at the highest levels of the CIA. The parallel should concern you. It does concern me, but it doesn't change what I need to do. No, I suppose it doesn't. Rivera's tone softened. Get some rest, Lieutenant. Tomorrow the real work begins. Inside her small quarters, Maya finally allowed herself to collapse. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the operation, through the DNI briefing, through everything, finally drained away completely. She sat on her bed and looked at the photo on her nightstand, her father in his SEAL uniform, smiling with the confidence of someone who believed he was invincible. He'd died 3 weeks after that photo was taken. I hope I made you proud, Dad, she whispered to the image. I hope saving those men was worth whatever happens next. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The message was in Arabic. Maya's blood turned cold as she translated it mentally. The ghost walks in daylight now. Such a shame when talented people make themselves targets. Give Al-Rashid's regards to your father when you see him. The threat was clear. Al-Rashid knew her identity. He knew her father's history, and he was promising that she'd share her father's fate.
Maya deleted the message and immediately reported it to base security, but the damage was done. The psychological warfare had begun. Al-Rashid wasn't just trying to kill her, he was trying to terrorize her first. The question was whether Maya Chen had the strength to fight back, or whether the weight of 4 deaths, 8 lives saved, and a career in ruins would finally break her. Outside her window, the sun was rising over Naval Special Warfare Center. Another day beginning, another battle ahead. And somewhere in Yemen, Abu Khalid al-Rashid was planning his next move in a game where the stakes were measured in American lives. Maya Chen had proven she could win tactical victories. Now she had to prove she could survive the war. The threat message changed everything. Maya forwarded it to base security at 0647 hours, then sat staring at her phone, wondering how al-Rashid had gotten her personal number. That information wasn't in any public database. It wasn't in her Navy personnel file, which meant someone with access to classified CIA records had given it to him. Someone like William Mercer. Her phone rang at 0703. Director Caldwell's voice was clipped and urgent. "Lieutenant Chen, the message you received confirms our worst fears. Mercer isn't just leaking operational intelligence, he's actively working with al-Rashid's network to target you personally."
Sir, how did they get my phone number?
That's what worries me. Your contact information is classified at the same level as your operational identity. The only people who should have access are your direct chain of command and your former CIA handlers. Maya's stomach twisted.
Are you saying someone in my current chain of command might be compromised?
I'm saying we can't trust anyone until we know how deep this goes. Lieutenant, I'm pulling you off the base. You're being transferred to a secure facility where we can control access and monitor threats.
Sir, I can't just abandon my duties here. Chief Webb and his team need—
Chief Webb and his team will survive without you. What they won't survive is having you killed on base because we failed to take proper precautions. Pack essential items. You leave in 30 minutes. The call ended before Maya could argue. She was stuffing clothes into a duffel bag when someone knocked. Master Chief Rivera entered without waiting for permission, his face grim.
Lieutenant, I heard about the transfer. This is wrong. Master Chief, I don't have a choice.
The DNI gave me a direct order. You always have a choice, and running away from this base sends exactly the wrong message to everyone who watched you save 8 lives last night. Maya zipped her bag. What message should I send instead? That I'm brave enough to get killed by a terrorist network while sitting in my quarters? That you're brave enough to stand your ground and finish what you started. Rivera's voice was intense. Lieutenant, you've got junior SEALs in that medical facility who want to learn from you. You've got an entire base that just watched a 29-year-old analyst outperform their best operators. You think hiding in some CIA safe house is going to help your career or your credibility?
My career is already destroyed, Master Chief. At least staying alive gives me a chance to rebuild it. Eventually.
Your career gets destroyed the moment you run. The moment you let fear override your duty. Rivera stepped closer. Your father didn't run when he faced threats. He stood his ground and did his job until the end.
My father died because he stood his ground, Master Chief. Maybe running would have kept him alive.
Or maybe running would have meant the people he was trying to protect died instead. You think your father would trade his life for the lives of his team? Because I knew Michael Chen, and I can tell you exactly what he'd choose. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed with another message. This one was from a number she recognized. Her former CIA handler, Marcus Devlin. Maya, don't get on that transport. Caldwell's facility has been compromised. Trust no one. Meet me at location Raven 7 in 2 hours. Location Raven 7 was a dead drop site Maya had established during her CIA service. No one, except Marcus, knew about it.
If he was telling her not to trust Caldwell's transfer, that meant the threat was even bigger than she'd thought. Maya showed the message to Rivera.
Master Chief, I need your honest assessment.
Is it possible the DNI's secure facility is compromised? Rivera read the message carefully.
Anything's possible when you're dealing with intelligence networks. But, Lieutenant, how do you know this message is actually from your handler? How do you know it's not Al-Rashid trying to lure you off base?
The question was valid. Maya had been trained to verify all communications, but there was a verification protocol built into the message. The phrase, "Location Raven 7, included a specific linguistic pattern that only Marcus would know. A callback to a conversation they'd had about Edgar Allan Poe during a long stakeout in Aleppo. It's genuine. Marcus built a verification system into our communications specifically for situations like this.
Then you've got a decision to make. Trust the DNI and get on that transport, or trust your former handler and go off the grid.
Maya looked at her watch. 22 minutes until the transport arrived. If she was going to run, she needed to move now.
Master Chief, if I leave base against orders, I'm committing insubordination. That's a court-martial offense.
If you get on that transport and it's compromised, you're dead. That's a permanent offense. Rivera's expression was challenging.
You've made hard choices before, Lieutenant. Make another one.
The weight of the decision pressed down on her. Follow orders and possibly die, or disobey orders and definitely destroy her career. Either way, she lost. Then her phone rang. Admiral Brennan's voice was tense. "Lieutenant Chen, don't get on that transport. I just received intelligence that suggests Caldwell's secure facility may have been compromised by the same network that leaked last night's operation."
Sir, how did you—
"I've got contacts in the intelligence community who owe me favors. They're telling me that Mercer had access to information about every secure facility in the DNI's network." If he's working with Al-Rashid, those facilities aren't safe. Maya's mind raced. "Sir, if I don't get on that transport, the DNI will have me arrested for disobeying a direct order." "Let me worry about Caldwell. Right now, I need you to trust me and stay on this base where I can protect you, with people I know aren't compromised."
Admiral, with respect, how do you know your people aren't compromised? How do you know I can trust anyone?
Brennan's voice softened. "Because I served with your father, Lieutenant. And I made him a promise the day he died, that if his daughter ever needed protection, I'd move heaven and earth to provide it. I'm keeping that promise now." The connection to her father hit hard. Maya's voice was thick.
What do you need me to do, sir?
Stay in your quarters. Don't open the door for anyone except Master Chief Rivera. I'm coordinating with the FBI to investigate Mercer's network and determine who else might be compromised. Until we know the full scope of the threat, you're safer here than anywhere else. As soon as Brennan ended the call, Maya heard vehicles approaching outside. Through her window, she saw 2 black SUVs pulling up, the transport Caldwell had sent for her. Rivera was already moving toward the door.
Lieutenant, those vehicles aren't scheduled to be here for another 18 minutes. Someone moved up the timeline.
Which means someone knew we might try to delay or prevent my departure.
Or someone wants to grab you before we can mount a proper defense.
Rivera keyed his radio. "Base security, this is Master Chief Rivera. We have unauthorized vehicles at Building 7. I need backup immediately." The response came back with confusion. "Master Chief, those vehicles are authorized by the DNI. They're here for Lieutenant Chen's transfer." "I don't care who authorized them. Lieutenant Chen is not leaving this base until Admiral Brennan gives explicit approval. Lock down the building." Through the window, Maya watched as 4 men in civilian clothes emerged from the SUVs. They moved with military precision toward her building's entrance. Something about their body language felt wrong, too aggressive,
too focused, too much like an assault team rather than a protective detail.
Master Chief, those aren't protection officers. Those are operators.
Rivera had already reached the same conclusion. He pulled his sidearm and positioned himself between Maya and the door. "Lieutenant, get in your bathroom and lock the door. If shooting starts, you stay down until I give the all clear." "I'm not hiding while you—" "That's not a suggestion. Move, now!" The command in his voice left no room for argument. Maya grabbed her phone and retreated to the bathroom, just as she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. A knock. Professional. Polite. Absolutely terrifying in its normalcy. "Lieutenant Chen, we're here to escort you to the secure facility. Please open the door." Rivera's voice was steady. "This facility is on lockdown. Lieutenant Chen isn't going anywhere until we verify your credentials through proper channels." "Master Chief, we have direct authorization from the Director of National Intelligence. Open this door or we'll be forced to breach it." "You breach that door, and I guarantee you'll regret it." A pause. Maya could hear radio traffic from the hallway, the team communicating with someone off-site. Then one of them spoke again, and this time the professional courtesy was gone. "Master Chief Rivera, you are interfering with a lawful order from the DNI. Stand aside or face charges of obstruction." "I'm following orders from my commanding officer. You want Lieutenant Chen, you go through Admiral Brennan first." "We don't have time for this bureaucratic bullshit." The explosion of the door being breached was deafening even through the bathroom wall. Maya heard Rivera shouting, heard multiple voices yelling commands, heard the distinctive sound of a struggle. Then gunfire. 3 shots in rapid succession. Maya's training overrode her fear. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, giving the emergency dispatcher her location and reporting shots fired. Then she dialed Admiral Brennan. "Sir, they breached my quarters. Rivera engaged them. I heard shots." Brennan's voice was urgent. "Lieutenant, are you secure?" "I'm locked in my bathroom, but I don't know how long." The bathroom door exploded inward. A man in civilian clothes with a Glock pointed directly at her face filled the doorway. "Lieutenant Chen, you're coming with us, right now." Maya raised her hands slowly. Through the broken doorway, she could see Rivera on the floor, blood spreading from his shoulder. 2 of the operators were securing him, while the other 2 moved toward her bathroom. "I want to see credentials. I want proper authorization."
I want...
The man grabbed her arm with brutal efficiency. "You want to stay alive? You shut up and come with us." They dragged her through the destroyed quarters, past Rivera, who was trying to reach for his weapon despite his injury, into the hallway where base security personnel were arriving with weapons drawn. "Federal agents, stand down!" The man holding Maya's arm shouted, flashing credentials that looked legitimate. "We have authorization from the DNI to extract this officer for her own protection." The base security team hesitated, confused by the competing claims of authority. In that moment of hesitation, the operators hustled Maya toward the waiting SUVs. Admiral Brennan's voice suddenly boomed across the base public address system. "All personnel, this is Admiral Brennan. The individuals claiming to be federal agents are not authorized. Repeat, they are not authorized. Stop them by any means necessary." The base security team immediately leveled their weapons. "Release the lieutenant and put your hands up, now!" The operator holding Maya's arm pressed a gun against her ribs. "Tell them to stand down or you die right here." Maya met the security team leader's eyes. "Don't stand down. These men are not who they claim to be." "Shut up!" The gun pressed harder. Chief Marcus Webb appeared from the medical facility, his arm still in a sling but a weapon in his good hand. His voice carried the authority of someone who just survived combat and had nothing left to lose. "Let her go, right now."
The operators were surrounded by over 20 armed Navy personnel. Their extraction plan had fallen apart. The man holding Maya's arm made a calculation and decided his life was worth more than the mission. "This isn't over, Lieutenant. Al-Rashid doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive." They released her and raised their hands.
Within seconds, base security had them on the ground in flex cuffs, while Maya stood shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Webb approached her carefully. "Ma'am, are you hurt?"
No, but Master Chief Rivera...
"Medical team's with him now. Looks like a through-and-through shoulder wound. He'll live." Maya's legs suddenly felt unstable. Webb caught her arm as she swayed. "Easy, Lieutenant. You're in shock. Let's get you to medical."
Chief, those men had DNI credentials. They had authorization codes. How did they...
They had fake credentials and compromised codes. Admiral Brennan figured it out about 3 minutes too late to stop them from breaching your quarters. Admiral Brennan arrived at a run, his face flushed with anger and fear. "Lieutenant Chen, are you injured?"
No, sir, but they almost
kidnapped you off a United States Navy base using forged credentials and compromised authorization codes, which means this conspiracy goes deeper than we thought. Brennan turned to the base security chief. "I want those men isolated and interrogated. I want every credential verified through independent channels, and I want this base locked down. No one enters, no one leaves without my personal authorization." Within minutes, Maya was in the base medical facility being examined by Dr. Sarah Martinez, while Master Chief Rivera was being treated 2 beds over. His shoulder was bandaged, but he was conscious and angry.
Lieutenant, I tried to stop them. I should have... You got shot protecting me, Master Chief. You did more than enough. I let them take you. If base security hadn't arrived when they did, if you hadn't fought them, they would have grabbed me before anyone knew what was happening. You bought the time that saved my life.
Dr. Martinez finished her examination.
Lieutenant, physically you're fine, but you've been through significant trauma in the last 24 hours.
I'm recommending 48 hours of monitored rest.
Doctor, I can't rest. There's too much.
You can, and you will. Admiral Brennan's voice left no room for argument. Lieutenant, you're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. You've been awake for over 24 hours. You've coordinated a combat rescue. You've been investigated by the DNI, and you've survived an attempted kidnapping. You need rest. Before Maya could argue, her phone buzzed. Marcus Devlin's voice was urgent when she answered. "Maya, are you safe?"
For now. Someone just tried to grab me off base using forged DNI credentials.
That was Al-Rashid's network. They're getting desperate because the FBI is closing in on Mercer. I've got information you need to hear, but not over the phone. Can you get to location Raven 7?
Marcus, I'm on lockdown. The base is secured and I'm not allowed to leave.
Then I'm coming to you. Give me 2 hours. The call ended. Admiral Brennan had been listening. "Lieutenant, who was that?"
My former CIA handler, sir. He says he has information about the conspiracy.
Can you trust him? The question haunted Maya. Could she trust Marcus? She'd worked with him for 3 years, trusted him with her life dozens of times. But she'd also trusted William Mercer, and that trust had nearly gotten 8 SEALs killed.
I don't know, sir. I don't know who I can trust anymore.
Brennan's expression softened. Then trust this. I promised your father I'd protect his daughter. I'm keeping that promise. Your handler wants to meet? Fine. But he meets here, on my base, surrounded by my people. And if he's compromised, he doesn't leave. 2 hours later, Marcus Devlin arrived at the main gate in a rental car, alone, carrying nothing but a tablet computer. Base security searched him thoroughly before escorting him to the secure conference room where Maya waited with Admiral Brennan, Chief Webb, and recovering Master Chief Rivera. Marcus looked older than Maya remembered. The stress of the last 6 months showed in new lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. But his voice was steady when he spoke.
Maya, I'm sorry about what happened to you. I should have seen Mercer's betrayal sooner.
Marcus, how long have you known he was compromised?
I started suspecting 3 months ago, when operational intelligence kept leaking to al-Rashid's network. But I didn't have proof until yesterday, when the FBI traced financial transfers from Mercer to offshore accounts linked to terrorist financing.
3 months? Marcus, you suspected for 3 months and didn't tell anyone?
I couldn't tell anyone because I didn't know how high the conspiracy went. For all I knew, reporting Mercer would have just alerted whoever he was working with.
Admiral Brennan leaned forward. Mr. Devlin, you're asking us to believe you conducted an independent investigation into a high-level CIA officer without informing your superiors or the FBI. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid.
It's incredibly necessary, Admiral, because Mercer wasn't working alone.
Marcus activated his tablet, showing a network diagram that made Maya's blood run cold. The diagram showed connections between William Mercer and 6 other CIA officers who had access to classified operations across the Middle East, officers who could compromise dozens of ongoing missions. This is a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of the agency's Middle East operations. Mercer was just the most visible part. These other officers have been feeding intelligence to al-Rashid's network for at least 2 years. Chief Webb spoke up.
How much intelligence are we talking about?
Enough to compromise every major counterterrorism operation in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Enough to get dozens of American and Allied personnel killed. Enough to make al-Rashid one of the most effective terrorist commanders in history.
Maya stared at the diagram, her mind racing through implications. Marcus, if this is true, then everything we thought we knew about al-Rashid's capabilities is wrong. We thought he was surviving through tactical brilliance, but he was surviving because we were telling him exactly where and when we'd attack.
Exactly. And now that we've identified the network, al-Rashid knows his intelligence advantage is disappearing, which is why he's getting desperate and making mistakes like trying to kidnap you off a Navy base.
So what's our next move?
Marcus met her eyes. We use al-Rashid's desperation against him. We feed the compromised network false intelligence about a CIA operation targeting him. When he takes the bait, we eliminate both al-Rashid and the traitors feeding him information. Admiral Brennan shook his head. That's a CIA operation. Lieutenant Chen is Navy now. She's not part of your chain of command.
She's the only person al-Rashid fears, Admiral. Her analysis has come closer to stopping him than anyone else in 3 years. If we're going to bait this trap effectively, we need her expertise.
Maya looked at Brennan.
Sir, this is the mission I've been preparing for since I joined the CIA. This is my chance to finish what I started.
It's also a chance to get yourself killed, Lieutenant.
With respect, sir, staying here didn't keep me safe. The only way I survive long-term is if we eliminate the threat.
Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he turned to Marcus. Mr. Devlin, if Lieutenant Chen participates in this operation, it will be under my authority and my protection. She's a Navy officer now, and she follows Navy protocols.
Understood? Understood, Admiral, but we need to move fast. Al-Rashid will relocate as soon as he realizes his kidnapping attempt failed.
Maya stood, her decision made.
Then let's not give him time to relocate. Let's end this now.
The plan came together with brutal efficiency.
Marcus would feed false intelligence through the compromised network, suggesting that a CIA kill team had identified al-Rashid's location in Yemen. The intelligence would be detailed enough to be credible, tempting enough to draw al-Rashid into responding. When al-Rashid took the bait and moved to avoid the fake CIA team, a real JSOC strike team would be waiting at his actual location. Intelligence that Maya would develop using the analytical skills that had made her the agency's best hunter. It was risky, it required perfect timing, and it meant Maya would be coordinating another life-or-death operation less than 48 hours after the last one.
But as she looked at Chief Webb's determined face, at Master Chief Rivera's wounded shoulder, at the tablet showing 6 traitors who'd gotten American personnel killed, she knew there was no other choice. Al-Rashid had made this personal when he threatened her family's legacy. Now she was going to make him regret it. The mission clock started at 1400 hours. They had 72 hours to identify al-Rashid's location, feed false intelligence through compromised channels, and coordinate a strike that would eliminate both the terrorist commander and the conspiracy that had protected him. 72 hours to finish a war that had been going on for 3 years. 72 hours to prove that Maya Chen was more than just a survivor. She was a weapon. And she was about to show al-Rashid exactly what happened when you threatened the wrong person's family. The operations center hummed with controlled urgency at 14:30 hours. Maya sat at her console, surrounded by screens showing signals intelligence, satellite feeds, and communications intercepts from across Yemen. Marcus worked beside her, coordinating with his CIA contacts to feed false intelligence through the compromised network. Admiral Brennan monitored from the command station, while Chief Webb and his recovering team prepared for potential rapid response. Marcus, the false intelligence needs to be perfect. If al-Rashid suspects it's a trap, he'll disappear for months. I know. That's why we're using actual intelligence from a real CIA operation that was scrubbed last month. The details are authentic enough to pass scrutiny from anyone checking the sourcing. Maya pulled up a communication intercept from 3 hours earlier. Al-Rashid's network is already responding to the leak. They're discussing relocation protocols and security measures. He's taking the bait. How long until he moves? Based on his previous patterns, he'll relocate within 12 to 18 hours of receiving threat intelligence. We need to identify his actual location before he moves, or we lose our window. The challenge was enormous. Al-Rashid had survived 3 years of American targeting by never staying in one location longer than 48 hours, never using electronic communications that could be traced, never establishing predictable patterns. Finding him required analyzing hundreds of intelligence fragments to identify the invisible threads connecting his network. Maya had done it before. She'd found him in Syria, called in the airstrike that should have killed him. This time, she couldn't afford to fail. Chief Webb approached her console. "Lieutenant, what can my team do to help?"
Chief, I need you to coordinate with JSOC on the strike package. Once we identify al-Rashid's location, the response window will be 30 minutes or less.
Everything needs to be pre-positioned and ready to execute. Already done, ma'am. We've got a SEAL team on alert in Djibouti and a Reaper drone orbiting over Yemen. The moment you give us coordinates, we can strike. Master Chief Rivera joined them, his wounded shoulder in a sling, but his presence commanding.
Lieutenant, the base is locked down tight. No one gets in or out without biometric verification and personal authorization from Admiral Brennan. If there are any more compromised personnel trying to interfere, we'll catch them. Maya nodded her thanks, but her attention was already back on the intelligence feeds. Somewhere in the data was the pattern that would reveal al-Rashid's location. She just had to find it. At 16:15 hours, the first break came. A communication intercept showed al-Rashid's network discussing medical supplies being moved to a location in the Hadramaut region. Medical supplies meant someone important was injured or preparing for potential casualties.
"Marcus, look at this.
They're moving trauma supplies to coordinates that don't match any known al-Rashid safe houses. Marcus examined the intercept. Could be a hospital run for local fighters, not necessarily connected to al-Rashid. Except the request came through a communication node we've linked to his personal security detail, and the timing matches when he'd be preparing to relocate from his current location. You think he's injured from the airstrike 2 years ago? Maya pulled up medical intelligence from the original strike assessment. The airstrike wounded several of his command staff. If al-Rashid sustained injuries that require ongoing medical treatment, he'd need supplies at every location he relocates to. That's a solid theory, but we need confirmation before we commit a JSOC strike team. The confirmation came 40 minutes later. Another intercept showed a vehicle convoy departing a compound northeast of Mukalla. The convoy included a vehicle modified with medical equipment, exactly what someone with serious injuries would need for transport. Maya cross-referenced the convoy route with historical data on al-Rashid's movement patterns. The correlation was 93%. This was him. Admiral Brennan, I have a probable location for al-Rashid. Confidence level 93%. Brennan moved to her console. Walk me through your analysis. Maya showed him the evidence chain, the medical supplies request, the convoy movement, the historical pattern matching. It was solid intelligence, the kind that had made her the CIA's best analyst. Lieutenant, 93% is good, but it's not certain. If we're wrong, we waste a JSOC strike and alert al-Rashid that we're hunting him. Sir, with respect, we'll never get 100% certainty with someone like al-Rashid. He's survived this long precisely because he makes certainty impossible. We have to act on high-probability intelligence or we'll never act at all. Brennan studied her face. This is your call, Lieutenant. You're the subject matter expert. Do we strike or wait for better intelligence? The weight of the decision pressed down on Maya like physical force. She was asking American Special Operations personnel to risk their lives based on her analysis. If she was wrong, people could die. If she was right, but the intelligence was leaked through the compromised network, people could die. But if she waited, al-Rashid would disappear, and 4 SEALs would have died for nothing. We strike, sir. Now, before he reaches his destination and establishes new security protocols. Brennan nodded. Chief Webb, execute the strike. Authorization code Brennan Alpha 7. Webb was already on the radio, coordinating with JSOC. Watchdog 3, this is Dagger 7. We have target coordinates and authorization for immediate strike. Confirm ready status. The JSOC response was immediate. Dagger 7, Watchdog 3 confirms ready status. Send coordinates. Maya transmitted the convoy's projected location 30 minutes ahead, where al-Rashid would be when the strike package arrived. It was calculated risk based on his convoy's speed and the terrain analysis showing only one viable route through that region. Watchdog 3, coordinates transmitted. Target is mobile, high-value individual with security detail. Authorization for lethal strike confirmed. Dagger 7, Watchdog 3 copies. Strike package inbound. Time on target, 18 minutes. The operations center fell silent as everyone waited. 18 minutes for the Reaper drone to reposition. 18 minutes for al-Rashid's convoy to move into the target zone. 18 minutes for Maya's analysis to be proven right, or catastrophically wrong. At 17:04 hours, Marcus received an urgent message from his FBI contacts. His face went pale as he read it. Maya, we have a problem. The FBI just arrested one of the compromised CIA officers. During interrogation, he revealed that Mercer has a contingency plan for if his network gets exposed. What kind of contingency plan? A dead man's switch. If Mercer doesn't check in every 12 hours, an encrypted file gets automatically released to al-Rashid, containing the identities of every CIA operative in the Middle East, including you. Maya felt ice in her veins. When was Mercer's last check-in? 11 hours and 40 minutes ago. We have 20 minutes before that file gets released. Admiral Brennan grabbed his phone. Get me the FBI director, now! But Maya was already thinking ahead. Marcus, can the FBI access Mercer's communication systems and send the check-in code? Not without Mercer's cooperation. The system requires biometric verification that we can't fake. Then we need Mercer to cooperate. Where is he? Dubai, outside U.S. jurisdiction and beyond our reach. Chief Webb spoke up. Not entirely beyond our reach, ma'am. We've got assets in Dubai who could grab him. Not in 20 minutes, we don't. There's no time. Maya's mind raced through possibilities. They needed Mercer's biometric data to send the check-in and prevent the file release. But Mercer was in Dubai, protected by a government that wouldn't extradite him, surrounded by security that would take hours to penetrate. Then she remembered something from her CIA training. Mercer had a daughter, Emily, who worked at the State Department in Washington, D.C., a daughter he'd been estranged from for years after his divorce, a daughter whose biometric data would be similar enough to her father's that it might fool a verification system designed to prevent accidental triggers rather than dedicated deception. Marcus, does the check-in system use facial recognition or fingerprint verification? Facial recognition. Why? Because Mercer has a daughter who looks enough like him that she might pass the biometric check. Can we get her to a CIA facility in the next 15 minutes? Marcus was already making calls. Emily Mercer works at State Department headquarters. We've got a CIA station in the same building. If she cooperates, we can have her in front of verification equipment in 5 minutes. Will she cooperate? Her father's a traitor. Her father abandoned her family when she was 12. She's got no love for him. If we explain that her cooperation prevents terrorist attacks, she'll help. The clock showed 11 minutes until the file release. Marcus was on the phone with the FBI, coordinating Emily Mercer's emergency cooperation. Admiral Brennan was coordinating with JSOC on the al-Rashid strike. Maya was monitoring intelligence feeds to ensure the convoy hadn't diverted from its projected route. At 1712 hours, Emily Mercer was in front of CIA verification equipment at State Department headquarters, her face being digitally mapped to match her father's biometric profile. The technical team had 8 minutes to create a convincing enough match to fool the dead man's switch. At 1715 hours, the JSOC strike package was 3 minutes from target. The Reaper drone's camera showed al-Rashid's convoy moving through a narrow mountain pass, exactly where Maya had predicted. At 1717 hours, the technical team transmitted the biometric verification using Emily Mercer's modified facial data. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then Marcus's phone buzzed with confirmation. The check-in had been accepted. The file release was prevented. Maya exhaled breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Marcus, we're clear on the dead man's switch. For 12 hours. Then we need to do this all over again unless we can get Mercer into custody. Admiral Brennan pointed at the drone feed. Lieutenant, we've got bigger concerns right now. JSOC is requesting final strike authorization. The drone feed showed the convoy clearly. 3 vehicles, the middle one modified with medical equipment, moving through terrain that offered no escape routes. If Maya was right, al-Rashid was in that middle vehicle. If she was wrong, they were about to kill innocent people based on pattern analysis. Lieutenant Chen, final authorization is your call. Strike or abort? Maya studied the feed with 3 years of experience analyzing al-Rashid's operations. The convoy composition matched his security protocols. The route matched his movement patterns. The timing matched his relocation schedule. Everything pointed to this being the target. "Strike authorized. Execute now." The Hellfire missile appeared on the drone feed as a streak of light. It impacted the middle vehicle with devastating precision. The explosion consumed all 3 vehicles in a fireball that left no survivors. The operations center erupted in controlled celebration. Chief Webb's team cheered. Marcus was on the phone confirming the strike with CIA headquarters. Admiral Brennan was already requesting battle damage assessment from JSOC. But Maya sat frozen at her console, staring at the drone feed showing burning wreckage. She'd just killed people based on her analysis. If she was right, she'd eliminated one of the most dangerous terrorist commanders in the world. If she was wrong, she'd murdered innocent people. Master Chief Rivera placed his good hand on her shoulder. "Lieutenant, breathe. You made the right call." "How do you know, Master Chief? How do you know those were the right people to kill?" "Because you're the best intelligence analyst the military has. Because your track record speaks for itself. Because sometimes you have to trust your expertise and live with the consequences." The battle damage assessment came through 15 minutes later. DNA analysis would take hours, but initial intelligence from the strike site confirmed the middle vehicle had contained a male matching al-Rashid's physical description, with evidence of old shrapnel wounds consistent with the original airstrike. It was him. Maya had finally finished what she'd started 3 years ago. At 18:45 hours, Marcus received confirmation from FBI headquarters. The 6 compromised CIA officers had all been arrested simultaneously, based on evidence developed from the Mercer investigation. The conspiracy that had protected al-Rashid for 3 years was dismantled. Admiral Brennan addressed the operations center. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we eliminated a terrorist commander who's been responsible for hundreds of American and Allied casualties. We dismantled a conspiracy that compromised our intelligence operations across the Middle East. And we prevented the exposure of CIA operative identities that would have cost countless lives." This is what happens when skilled professionals trust each other and execute their missions with precision. He looked directly at Maya. "Lieutenant Chen, your analysis made this operation possible. Your courage in standing up against operational arrogance saved 8 lives 2 days ago. Your expertise hunting al-Rashid finally brought him to justice. The nation owes you a debt it can never fully repay." Maya stood, exhausted and emotionally drained. "Sir, I was just doing my job." "No, Lieutenant. You were doing something much harder than your job. You were doing what was right, despite the personal cost. That's the definition of heroism." Chief Webb approached with his entire team. They came to attention and saluted, a gesture of respect that needed no words. Maya returned the salute, feeling 3 years of weight finally lifting from her shoulders. The memorial service for Petty Officer Jake Hartman and his 3 teammates took place 72 hours later. Maya attended in her dress uniform, standing with Chief Webb's surviving team members as the chaplain spoke about sacrifice and service. When it was her turn to speak, Maya walked to the podium and looked out at the assembled SEALs, their families, and the command staff who'd supported her through the darkest week of her life. "I didn't know Petty Officer Hartman well. Our only real interaction was brief and contentious. But I've spent the last week learning who he was through the words of the men who served with." Petty Officer Hartman's legacy isn't his final mistake. It's the lesson his sacrifice teaches all of us. That respect should be based on competence, not credentials. That wisdom sometimes comes from unexpected sources. That the courage to admit when you're wrong is just as important as the courage to fight. She looked at Chief Webb and his team. These men honor Hartman's memory not by pretending he was perfect, but by learning from his mistakes and becoming better operators. That's generous, but it doesn't change the fact that I nearly got you killed by ordering you to that compromised secure facility. Caldwell's expression was genuinely apologetic. I've spoken with the Secretary of Defense about your situation. Given your performance over the last week, we'd like to offer you a position with the Defense Intelligence Agency, coordinating counterterrorism operations."
Maya was quiet for a moment. It was the kind of position she'd dreamed about. Important work, significant responsibility, recognition for her expertise. But it was also a return to the operational world that had consumed 3 years of her life and left her exhausted. "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but I think my value is here, training the next generation of operators to work effectively with intelligence professionals. Chief Webb and his team have asked me to develop a program on intelligence integration. I think that's where I can make the most difference."
Caldwell nodded slowly. "Lieutenant, that's probably the wisest decision you could make. God knows we need more operators who understand how to use intelligence effectively." He extended his hand. "The offer remains open if you change your mind, but I respect your choice." 6 weeks later, Maya stood in front of her first class of SEAL candidates. Chief Webb sat in the front row, his arm out of the sling now, notebook ready. Master Chief Rivera observed from the back, his shoulder healing well. Admiral Brennan had personally introduced her to the class as the officer who revolutionized how we think about intelligence and operations integration. "Gentlemen," Maya began, "my name is Lieutenant Maya Chen. Before I transferred to the Navy, I spent 3 years hunting terrorists with the CIA. I watched good people die because operators didn't trust intelligence assessments. I watched missions fail because analysts didn't understand operational realities, and I watched pride and assumptions cost lives that should have been saved." She clicked to her first slide, showing the tactical layout from the Yemen operation. 2 months ago, a SEAL team received intelligence warning them that their target was a trap. They rejected that intelligence based on assumptions about the analyst's experience and capability. 4 men died in the first 8 seconds of that operation. 8 men survived because that same analyst prepared to save them even after being dismissed. The class was silent, every candidate understanding they were hearing about real events with real consequences. "I'm going to teach you how to evaluate intelligence objectively, how to integrate analyst recommendations into tactical planning, how to recognize when your operational confidence is overriding solid evidence, and, most importantly, how to respect expertise regardless of where it comes from." She looked at each candidate individually. "Some of you are thinking you don't need this training. Some of you believe your operational experience makes you qualified to evaluate intelligence without help. Some of you are exactly like Petty Officer Jake Hartman 2 months ago." Maya's voice hardened. "Petty Officer Hartman was a good operator who made a fatal mistake. His mistake was assuming that competence looked a certain way, sounded a certain way, came from certain sources. He's dead because of that assumption. Don't make the same mistake." Over the next 4 hours, Maya taught them what 3 years of combat operations had taught her. She taught them how to read intelligence reports for buried warnings. She taught them how to challenge their own assumptions. She taught them how to survive in a world where the most dangerous enemy was the threat you refused to see. Chief Webb stayed after class ended. "Lieutenant, that was incredible. You gave them tools that will save lives for years to come." "I gave them what I wish someone had given Hartman before he died, Chief. The wisdom to know that respect isn't about rank or credentials. It's about competence demonstrated under pressure." "He would have appreciated that lesson, ma'am. Eventually." Maya smiled sadly. "Eventually isn't soon enough when people are dying, Chief." 3 months after the Yemen operation, Maya received a letter from Emily Mercer. The letter thanked her for preventing the dead man's switch from exposing CIA operatives and explained that Emily had cooperated because she wanted to undo some of the damage her father had caused. The letter concluded with a single paragraph that made Maya pause. "My father called me yesterday from his cell at the Federal Detention Center.
He asked me to tell you that he never meant for American personnel to die. He thought he was providing intelligence to moderate opposition groups who would use it for defensive purposes only.
He didn't realize until too late that he was being manipulated by al-Rashid's network. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I just thought you should know that traitors aren't always monsters. Sometimes they're just people who made catastrophic mistakes and couldn't find a way to stop. Maya read the letter 3 times before filing it away. Mercer's motivation didn't change the consequences of his actions. 4 SEALs were still dead. Dozens of other operations had been compromised. People had died because someone thought they were smarter than the security protocols designed to prevent exactly that kind of betrayal. But understanding that traitors were human made it harder to sustain the anger that had driven her for 3 years. Maybe that was growth. Maybe that was healing. Maybe that was just exhaustion. On a quiet Sunday morning, 6 months after the Yemen operation, Maya walked along the beach near Naval Special Warfare Center. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before her, and the sound of waves provided a rhythm that felt almost meditative. Master Chief Rivera found her there, walking the same beach where he often came to think. Lieutenant Chen, or should I say Lieutenant Commander Chen now that your promotion came through. Maya smiled. The promotion's official in 2 weeks, Master Chief. Don't jinx it. Admiral Brennan doesn't make recommendations lightly. You earned that promotion through performance that exceeded every expectation. Rivera walked beside her in comfortable silence for a few moments. How are you doing, really? Honestly, Master Chief? Some days I'm fine. Some days I wake up thinking about Hartman and his team and wondering if I could have done something different to make them listen. Some days I think about al-Rashid burning in that convoy and feel satisfied. Some days I feel guilty for feeling satisfied. That's called being human, Lieutenant. The day you stop feeling conflicted about killing people is the day you should worry. Did my father struggle with that? After his operations? Rivera was quiet for a long moment. Your father carried weight that no one else could see. He made decisions that haunted him, but he also knew that sometimes the right choice is the hard choice, and you make it anyway because the alternative is worse. He died making one of those choices. He died saving his team, just like you saved Chief Webb's team. The circumstances were different, but the choice was the same. Honor over safety. Duty over self-preservation. Maya stopped walking and looked out at the ocean. Do you think it's worth it, Master Chief? The sacrifice, the weight, the cost of doing what's right? Rivera followed her gaze to the endless water. I think we don't get to choose whether it's worth it. We only get to choose whether we're the kind of people who do what's right, regardless of the cost. Your father chose to be that kind of person. You chose to be that kind of person. The worth isn't in the individual moment. The worth is in the life built from those choices. They stood together in silence, 2 people who'd seen too much and carried too much, finding peace in the knowledge that their burdens meant something. Back at the base, Chief Webb was leading his team through the training program Maya had developed. They studied intelligence reports with new eyes, learned to challenge their assumptions, practiced integrating analyst recommendations into tactical planning. One of the new candidates raised his hand. Chief, why do we need all this intelligence training? Isn't that what we have analysts for? Webb's response was immediate. Because 2 months ago, good men died because we didn't listen to an analyst who knew more than we did. Because assuming you know everything is how you get your team killed. Because Lieutenant Commander Chen taught me that the most dangerous enemy is the one you refuse to see. And sometimes, that enemy is your own arrogance. The candidate nodded, chastened by the reality check. Webb continued. You want to be an elite operator? Then learn to respect expertise wherever you find it.
Learn to trust competence regardless of rank or appearance. Learn to admit when someone knows more than you do. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And wisdom keeps you alive when confidence gets you killed. The lesson echoed through Naval Special Warfare Center, changing how an entire generation of operators thought about intelligence and expertise and respect. Maya Chen's legacy wasn't just the terrorist she'd eliminated, or the conspiracies she'd exposed, or the lives she'd saved. Her legacy was teaching warriors that true strength meant knowing when to listen.
Admiral Brennan stood before the assembled base personnel 2 years later, presenting Maya with the Navy Commendation Medal for her actions during the Yemen operation and the subsequent counterintelligence investigation. Lieutenant Commander Chen represents the best of what we aspire to be: technically proficient, morally courageous, and committed to excellence regardless of personal cost. She didn't just save 8 lives during a crisis. She changed how this entire command thinks about intelligence integration and professional respect. That's the kind of impact that echoes through decades of service. As Maya accepted the medal, she looked out at the faces watching her. Chief Webb, now a senior chief, leading his own team. Master Chief Rivera, retired now but still mentoring young operators. The dozens of students who'd completed her intelligence integration program. The memorial wall honoring Hartman and his teammates.
Sir, I accept this recognition on behalf of everyone who does the quiet work that enables operational success. The analysts who develop intelligence no one sees, the support staff who keep operations running, the people who serve in positions that don't get medals but make every mission possible. This medal represents their contribution as much as mine. After the ceremony, a young lieutenant approached Maya hesitantly. "Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Brooks. I just transferred here from intelligence school. I wanted to ask for advice about working with special operations personnel." Maya smiled, remembering when she'd asked similar questions 3 years earlier. "Lieutenant Brooks, here's what I learned. Competence speaks louder than credentials. Results matter more than rank. And respect isn't given because of your position. It's earned through performance under pressure." "How do I earn that respect, ma'am?" "By being so good at your job that people have no choice but to listen. By preparing to save people, even when they dismiss you. By having the courage to speak truth to power when lives depend on it." Maya's expression grew serious. "And by accepting that sometimes you do everything right, and people still die. The question isn't whether you can prevent every tragedy. The question is whether you can live with yourself knowing you did everything possible." Brooks nodded, absorbing wisdom that couldn't be taught in any classroom. "Thank you, ma'am. I hope I can serve with half your courage." "Lieutenant Brooks, you don't need half my courage. You need all your own courage. Find your voice, trust your expertise, and never let anyone make you feel smaller than your competence deserves." That evening, Maya sat in her office reviewing after-action reports from recent training exercises. Her students were integrating intelligence effectively. Operational success rates had improved. Most importantly, the cultural shift toward respecting analytical expertise was taking root throughout the command. A knock interrupted her work. Master Chief Rivera entered, carrying a folder. "Lieutenant Commander, I thought you should see this. It's the declassified file on your father's final operation." Maya's hand trembled slightly as she took the folder. She'd requested this file for 2 years, been told repeatedly it was too classified to release. Now, finally, the truth about how her father died. The report detailed a SEAL training operation that had gone catastrophically wrong. Equipment failure, communication breakdown, and command decisions that prioritized cost savings over safety protocols. Her father had filed complaints about the safety violations weeks before the operation.
His complaints had been ignored by senior officers who didn't want budget implications. When the equipment failed during the training exercise, Michael Chen had chosen to save his team rather than save himself. 4 SEALs lived because he made that choice. But the official investigation had buried the safety violations and blamed the accident on human error. Maya's father had died a hero. But he'd also died because people in authority had ignored expert warnings about preventable dangers. The parallel to her own experience was devastating and perfect.
Master Chief, why are you showing me this now?
Because you've spent 2 years wondering if your father's sacrifice made a difference. This file proves it did. After his death, new safety protocols were implemented across the entire SEAL community. Thousands of operators have been kept safe because Michael Chen spoke up about dangers even when his superiors didn't want to listen.
Rivera's voice was gentle. Your father's legacy isn't how he died. It's what changed because he died.
Just like your legacy won't be the terrorists you eliminated or the conspiracies you exposed. It'll be the culture you changed and the lives you saved by teaching people to listen to expertise. Maya looked at her father's photograph on her desk, young, confident, believing he could make a difference. He had made a difference, just not in the way he'd probably imagined. And now, 2 decades later, his daughter was making her own difference in her own way. The circle was complete. The mission was accomplished. The legacy continued. Maya Chen closed the file on her father's death and opened the curriculum for next week's training session. There was always more work to do, more students to teach, more lives to save through the quiet work of excellent intelligence analysis and cultural change. Some warriors fought with weapons. Some warriors fought with words. Some warriors fought by teaching others to recognize expertise and respect competence, regardless of rank or appearance. All of them were heroes. All of them mattered. All of them contributed to the mission of protecting the nation and the people who served it. And in that knowledge, Maya found peace. Real warriors serve. Respect is earned through competence, not credentials. And the greatest victory isn't defeating the enemy you can see. It's changing the culture so future warriors never have to fight the battles you fought alone. Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen had won that victory. Her father would have been proud. She had become exactly what the military needed. Not just an excellent analyst, but a leader who taught others that wisdom means knowing who to trust, when to listen, and how to recognize that the most valuable expertise often comes from the people you least expect. The mission was complete. The lesson was learned. The legacy would endure.